Hello. Today I want to react to the sentencing by George James Omotosho of Nigeria, the sentencing of Nigerian separatist leader Nnamdi Kanu.
Consequently, and in the interest of justice, I hereby sentence the convicts to life imprisonment for the said counts 1, 4, 5, and 6.
So for context, Nnamdi Kanu has been in custody recently since 2021 when he was extradited from Kenya to Nigeria and has been on charges of 7 charges of terrorism-related charges. So Kanu is fighting for what we call self-determination and secession of Nigerian Southeast Igbos from Nigeria. Now, for other contests, shortly after Nigeria gained independence, the Southeast, this region, tried to separate from Nigeria, and Nigeria went into a 3 years bitter civil war that led to millions of people of Southeastern Igbo dying. Millions lost their lives and properties were destroyed and the whole place was razed down. Now, over the years, Nigeria has managed to remain as one, but ethnic tensions remain, and people from this particular region, the Igbos, remain marginalized in Nigeria, especially in Nigeria's political space. People, all organizations like MASOB, Movement for the Actualization of the Sovereignty of Biafra, before IPOB, which Kanu leads, Indigenous People of Biafra, have, I would say, to some extent capitalized on these historical injustice to demand for separation of the Igbos. But then again, we can also say there is a strong level of legitimacy in the plight of the Igbos in Nigeria. And Nnamdi Kanu's organization, even though we can say, or Kanu himself and his organization may have to some extent exploited this, but that doesn't remove the fact that there is a legitimate grievance that the Igbos have in this country. And that has come into light also in recent years, where we've seen up to the government systematic, not only systematic exclusion from space, they've also seen some kind of blatant discrimination, or ethnic discrimination, or where in Lagos State, the former capital, where you're beginning to see governments strategically dismantling the economic structure of the Igbos by either demolition of the markets that are dominated by Igbos, or the properties through some kind of like sometimes bogus or through some legal loopholes. So we're beginning to see all of this, that the Igbos seems to feel aggrieved by this. But over the years, I would say personally that I'm not a fan of Kanu because of his and you will see where he, I think, to some extent, have undermined his own in the court's case.
You don't know what justice means? You have no idea what justice means. You don't know what justice means. Useless black African people. You don't know what justice. Your constitution says you cannot try anybody unless the law is written.
He's most times have been very composed. What's that word? Where he's been on ruling call, shouting the call, being arrogant, and it's that semantic that I didn't like when he was out, when he was leading IPOB. The whole ego, larger than life behavior that he has, and the way he sees himself as supreme and declares himself as the supreme leader. And then when you compare that to the leader, to Juku that fought the civil war, you see how those people, you see a clear demarcation, a clear distinction in the character. So I'm not a fan of Kanu's character. I don't think Kanu's character or his personality will, to some great extent, end up alienating the Igbos rather than projecting or promoting the legitimate cause of the Igbos. And I would say, to some extent, the plight of Igbos have been undermined by their allies who didn't buy into Kanu's stuff. And I can understand Kanu's character itself or personality itself is not one that the allies will buy into. So before I even get into the judgment, so I need to also give another context, the dynamics of Nigeria. You come to Nigeria, the three main ethnic group, the Hausas, the Yorubas, the Igbos, they have clear distinctions. So the major ethnic groups, Yorubas and Igbos, they have what you call a collective sense of identity, where anything they do, it will be supported by the elites. So now what Kanu has been accused of, the same other ethnic group, the same elites have done it. I've written extensively about this. When Kanu set up the indigenous people of Biafra, indigenous people of Biafra was the least violent of the proscribed groups in Nigeria. And Kanu fell into the trap of setting up the Eastern Security Network, which is seen as the armed network of IPOB. But now this was in direct response to what we're having, that the monster that Nigeria is facing, that the Fulani headsmen and the expansion southwards. And that was following where the southwest, the Yorubas have set up their Amotekun. But with the difference is, for Amotekun, everything, it was supported by the religious elite, the intellectual elite, the political elites in the southwest, in Yoruba land, up onto the elite. So, and then you see the face of it, Igboho, Sunday Igboho, which was as blatant, as brazen as Nnamdi Kanu. He was taking the law into his hands, he was disrupting. But Sunday Boy is free today. He's working freely. He somehow escaped into Benin and wasn't extradited. He's back and is free. But Nnamdi Kanu now is jailed for life. The same crime. Now, well, let's move to the Northerners. When Goodluck Jonathan was going to contest for a second term, I did research around it and I interviewed the elites in northern Nigeria, and they were ready. Even the former President Buhari, these people were ready. They said the baboon was soaking blood. These are threats. They were ready to go any extent. If Jonathan had won the second time, I tell you, there would have been serious crisis in Nigeria, because Jonathan's presidency was negotiated by Obasanjo. There was an agreement that Jonathan was going to serve one time. So the Northerners were ready to spill blood if Jonathan had won. And during that time as well, we see El-Rufai blatantly, publicly wanting to invite Fulani machineries that are now causing problem. And even the traditional rulers in the north were publicly saying they were going to invite machineries to their region. And we're seeing that now. Now, I'm saying this objectively as a researcher. I've got nothing to do with ethnicity. Out there, I'm the most detribalized person. But I'm saying that Nnamdi Kanu hasn't done anything different from all of these cases that I've cited. But I think, again, that the people that have sabotaged the genuine grievances of the Igbo elites themselves. I'm telling you that it needs to be the elites themselves, the Igbo elites, the intellectual elite, the religious elites, especially the political elite. And that also speaks to some extent to the nature of the Igbos. And I've written about this. The Igbos, but inadvertently, have kept Nigeria one, the Igbos. Because the Igbos, I don't think the Igbos have a colonial mentality. Now, that's why I was surprised when Ghana was saying the Igbo king. The Igbos are very hardworking. The Igbos are very industrious. You see them in any part of the world. They're business oriented rather than trying to politically control or take over a place they go to. They're just all about economics. So for me, the Igbos being what they are, have been able to spread right. Even when the Igbos during the Civil War experienced massive loss in the north, you still see the Igbos in the hinterland of the north open up businesses. That's who they are. That is just their nature. It's not a nature of trying to dominate. They're just very industrious. They're very businesslike, and they don't care where they open these businesses. They are not narrow-minded or just in their own enclave. And this has had an unfortunate impact in the way the Igbos can collectively fight for their interests, which shouldn't be. So I think if Nigeria wants to go forward, I'm not coming to say this, but what I want to say is this: if Nigeria wants to be taken serious, if this judgment is taken serious, then we need to apply the law evenly. You can't be selective. I've talked to intellectuals from the Yoruba period, and when Buhari was there, everyone was talking. It was this Fulanis, this Hausas. Now Tinubu is the Yoruba man is in the presidency. Now anything he does is good. I've seen intellectuals, from that ethnic group, and that shouldn't be so. As an intellectual, your first priority should be objective assessment, objective criticism, objective critique of things. We need to move the nation forward. If Nigeria is to move forward, we need to get to the point that Tanzania has got to. We need to get to the point where Rwanda has got to, where we don't talk about Yoruba, we don't talk about Igbo, we don't talk about what's that word, indigenous settler. Why are we still using those words? Those are colonial words. So I think we've inherited, and it's quite interesting that we are defending an arbitrary imposition of our state, that the colonial leaders created, and we're defending it with all our might without even looking at a way, having a dialogue and see how the different people of this region can live together peacefully, harmoniously, and forge a national identity that sees no tribe, that sees no religion, that sees no ethnicity, that sees no language. Nigeria hasn't gotten there. So when we for those that we for that bias, maybe ethnic bias, religious bias, that we want to praise this sentence by Justice Omotosho, I will implore you to think, because they say it is when it. I think they say it's he with the drum is beating that knows, because now we're beginning to see so many things going on in the Southwest. I'm hearing now where the Southwest says, oh, they need to protect, they need to set up their own structure. You see, what happens if an Houseman becomes a president tomorrow and then apply that, then you cry ethnic discrimination, because we're seeing what's going on already with this divisive stuff that Trump has said about Christian genocide. And I'm a Christian, but if not tell me, say, oh, yeah, Christians have been dying from a bias. No Christian genocide in the Christians are being killed, Muslims are being killed. There is no Christian genocide in this in that particular is a narrative is very wrong. The same thing we're doing here. You can apply justice when in the electoral law you're not enforcing that as the justice system, the judiciary system is very corrupt. The judiciary system is not one that is respectable. So when this kind of law, it's kind of case is more political than legal. It has been very politicized, and you see where from the former President Buhari to this president, where Kanu's case is won by appeal, and the court has said release him on bail, and the court and they blatantly just refuse to do that. So I don't see how you can obey your own court order and then you want to enforce. So that it's this irony, this paradox is it doesn't speak well of that country. It doesn't speak well of us. So I think again I always speak about this educational system. It's just poor. We need to be a system of people of critical mind that can look at things very, very critically. So I would say, to just conclude, to just summarize my point. Number one, Nnamdi Kanu from day one is not his character, his personality is not one. He's not the Moses that would lead the Igbos to paradise. And personally, I believe that Nigeria should remain one. I believe that the Igbos and all other ethnic groups should be able to have a dialogue and negotiate and fight for their interests to be protected within Nigeria. I believe we should have a new constitution. I believe the referendum, everything is all geared towards having a dialogue, and everybody that has been coupled together in this country should be able to sit on the table and fashion out a system that works for everybody. And I think Nnamdi Kanu is a political victim, even though I don't like his style, I don't like how he talks, I don't like his ego. He's a political victim, and I think again we should tread carefully, because until Nigeria deals with this historical injustice, and I would say categorical injustice against the Igbo, Nigeria is treading on a very dangerous path. So I'll leave on that and say, I don't know how this is going to pan out. What I've said in the past, if Nnamdi Kanu has been somehow been killed or whatever it is in custody, that would have sparked some kind of civil war. I don't think Nnamdi Kanu has that kind of clout within any revolution or any agitation that doesn't have the buy-in of the elite. Sometimes may not really. So the Igbo elites don't have a buy-in into this, and I think they have a hand as well in there is that interest for kind of to become. But sooner or later we will have to address that issue. So it's better we address the issue of injustice in the issue of discrimination, bias in that country that we're seeing is beyond that. So I'll leave it at that, and yeah.